Every year, over 10,000 people vanish without a trace, not from war zones or distant jungles, but from our own neighborhoods. Police records go cold, news stories vanish, families are left with no answers, and we move on, never asking the deeper question. What if these disappearances are not accidents, not crimes, but something far more orchestrated? Some say it's human trafficking. Others whisper about elite rings or intelligence agencies gone rogue. But a growing number of researchers believe there's a hidden hand pulling the strings, a group with a name you've heard before, but never truly understood, the Illuminati. Why do ancient symbols appear on the most powerful currencies in the world? Why are natural remedies suppressed while billion-dollar pharmaceutical empires thrive? Why do so many of the wealthiest, most influential figures share ties to secret societies that trace back centuries? We are taught to trust the system, to believe our world is guided by logic, science, and democracy. But what if that's just the cover story? Welcome to the story of the Illuminati, a shadow elite that, if the theories are true, has subtly shaped our societies, rewritten our histories, and manipulated our very understanding of reality. This isn't fiction. This is about patterns that repeat across nations, generations, and disciplines. It's about power used not to liberate, but to control. It's about how your health, your food, your beliefs, even your children's future, are entangled in a system designed to benefit the few at the cost of the many. Warning: what you're about to hear may disturb you. It may challenge the foundations of what you've always believed. Because once you see the strings, once you glimpse the puppet masters, there's no turning back. Before we begin, hit like, tap subscribe, and comment below. I'm ready to wake up. Let YouTube know you want more truth. Help others find this video. Help others start asking the right questions. Let's begin where the illusion is thinnest. Not in hidden bunkers or secret vaults, but in plain sight. In logos, buildings, music, videos, and apps. Let's look at the signs they've placed all around us. Take a dollar bill out of your pocket. Look closely. What do you see? An eye on top of a pyramid? You've seen it your whole life, but you were never taught to ask why. That's not just some cool design. It's a coded symbol, the all-seeing eye, surrounded by Latin phrases like annuit cuptis. He approves of our undertakings. And novus ordo seclorum, new order of the ages. These words and images trace back to ancient Egyptian, Roman, and occult traditions. And they weren't randomly placed on US currency. They were chosen by someone, for a reason. The eye, in ancient cultures, represented divine surveillance. In secret societies, it evolved to symbolize elite awareness and omnipresent control. The pyramid, that's a representation of a power structure, wide base, few at the top. Let that sink in. Now, look at the world around you. The CBS logo, a single, staring eye. The Time Warner logo, another stylized eye. Google Chrome, a tricolor spiral forming a digital eye. And then there's Apple, a bitten apple. Think back to Genesis, the forbidden fruit, knowledge that brings downfall. Now we carry it in our pockets. These aren't coincidences. Turn on a pop music video. What do you see? Celebrities covering one eye, flashing triangles. Standing on checkerboard floors, another Masonic symbol representing duality. Performers making pyramid hand signs or posing as if possessed. And the number 33. It appears again and again. 33 miners trapped. 33 days of conflict. 33rd level of Freemasonry, the pinnacle of esoteric initiation. Why do news stories and tragic events gravitate toward this number? You'll find that Washington, D.C. itself is a symbol. Aerial views show that the streets and monuments form complex Masonic symbols, pentagrams, compasses, and geometric alignments. Even the placement of the Capitol and the Washington Monument was not arbitrary. It follows the same principles of sacred geometry, found in Egyptian temples. The elite don't just govern, they embed their beliefs into the very cities and media we consume. Why? Because they believe in frequency, in symbolic manipulation, in shaping our subconscious through repetition and saturation. These symbols bypass our critical thinking. They live in the background of our awareness, shaping, nudging, conditioning, and for them, this is not superstition. It is strategy. Once you recognize the pattern, you start to see the world differently. Logos become spells, buildings become temples, media becomes initiation. You begin to realize we don't just live in a physical world. We live in a ritualized machine, designed by people who believe in the power of symbols, intention, and secrecy. And what do they believe in? Not democracy, not transparency. They believe in hidden hierarchy, knowledge for the few, and obedience from the many. So ask yourself, why are children growing up surrounded by these signs? Why are cartoons, music, clothing, and digital spaces flooded with these same ancient codes? Because the conditioning starts early, and it never stops. These symbols are not just cultural leftovers. They are operational tools, and the deeper you go, the more the question changes. It's no longer what does this symbol mean? It becomes who put it there, and why. We are just scratching the surface, because now that you see the code, you're ready to meet its architects. What comes to mind when you hear the word Illuminati? For most people, it's a bizarre mashup of pop stars flashing cryptic hand signs, shadowy cabals in dark chambers, and YouTube videos full of over-the-top paranoia. We've been conditioned to roll our eyes at the very idea, and that, ironically, is the first clue that something very real may be hiding beneath the noise. The concept of the Illuminati isn't a modern invention. In fact, it has real historical roots. The original Illuminati, or more precisely, the Bavarian Illuminati, was a secret society founded in 1776 by a professor of law named Adam Weishaupt. His vision, to challenge the oppressive control of the church and monarchy in Enlightenment-era Europe, sounds noble, right? A brotherhood of thinkers, philosophers, and revolutionaries who wanted to liberate mankind from religious dogma and tyrannical rule. But here's where things get murky. This group was accused of infiltrating the Freemasons, embedding themselves into powerful guilds and political movements, and subtly influencing revolutions, including the French Revolution. Less than a decade after its birth, the Illuminati was banned by the Bavarian government, its members exiled or arrested. Publicly, it was dismantled, or was it? Many researchers argue the opposite, that instead of being destroyed, the Illuminati went underground, splintering and evolving into something far more dangerous, a network of elite families and secret societies that wielded influence not through open rebellion, but through covert control of education, finance, media, and healthcare. And this is where the modern conspiracy really begins. Let's connect the dots. Why is it that nearly every major revolution in the last 200 years seems to result in a new central bank, a new ruling class, or a sudden explosion in global debt? Why do the same few families keep appearing behind the scenes in key industries? Why do pop stars and politicians alike flash the same occult symbols and phrases, as if reading from the same mysterious playbook? The theory is simple, but chilling. The Illuminati never vanished. It morphed, it expanded, it found new ways to embed itself within the systems you trust the most. They realized they didn't need to control people through brute force. They could do it with ideas, with education systems that teach obedience over critical thought, with media empires that manufacture consent, with pharmaceutical cartels that treat symptoms instead of causes, and with food policies that slowly sicken the population while enriching the few. Ask yourself, why are natural treatments and herbal remedies labeled as dangerous, while synthetic drugs with known side effects are pushed as miracles? Why are families, going bankrupt from healthcare costs in the most advanced nations. Why do we praise scientific freedom yet censor dissenting voices, even from award-winning doctors and researchers? The answer, according to this theory, is because a hidden elite wants control over your body, your mind, and your choices, and their methods are far more sophisticated than guns or tanks. They use laws, culture, trends, convenience, and perhaps, most importantly, ridicule. The greatest weapon the modern Illuminati has is the ability to make the truth sound crazy, to turn valid concerns into jokes, to make anyone asking questions seem like a lunatic, because once they control perception, they control everything. Think about it. If the truth was really so ridiculous, why would governments and tech companies spend billions on censorship, surveillance, and narrative control? Why would they need algorithms to suppress videos, shadow ban creators, or derank certain search terms? Because some ideas are too dangerous to spread. Ideas like this one, that the Illuminati is not fiction, that it's a living, adaptive structure, not a group meeting in robes, but an interconnected class of decision-makers who operate across borders and generations. A class that doesn't answer to presidents or laws. A class that sees the rest of us as livestock to be managed, not citizens to be served. And once you understand that possibility, everything else starts to make more sense. Up next, we expose how this alleged Illuminati infiltrated the very institution meant to keep you alive. Modern medicine. What if I told you that modern medicine, the very system you trust to heal, was never designed to make you truly healthy? Sound extreme? Let's take a look at the facts. Before the early 20th century, healing wasn't centered around pharmaceuticals or high-tech hospitals. Communities used herbal medicine, traditional knowledge, and food as preventative care. Health wasn't something you outsourced to a lab. It was something you lived every day. Then something changed. At the center of that change stood one man, John D. Rockefeller, a billionaire oil tycoon with ambitions far beyond fuel. In the early 1900s, Rockefeller saw a golden opportunity. If he could take control of medicine, he could not only reshape human health, he could monetize it. But there was a problem at the time. Medicine in America was incredibly diverse. There were natural healers, homeopaths, herbalists, and indigenous practitioners. People trusted plants, tonics, and age-old wisdom. Rockefeller needed to discredit those systems, so he did what any good monopolist would do. He created a problem only he could solve. Through his massive foundations, Rockefeller began funding medical schools with one catch. They had to teach a new, pharmaceutical-based model of medicine. Simultaneously, he funded a report in 1910 called the Flexner Report, which systematically discredited natural healing and called for modernization of medical education. Overnight, hundreds of natural medicine schools were closed. Herbalists were labeled as quacks, and medical licensing laws began to criminalize anyone who practiced outside the new pharmaceutical standard. And guess who owned the patents to many of the new synthetic drugs? Rockefeller and his allies. But it didn't stop there. To maintain control, they needed to shape the narrative, so they poured money into media, into textbooks, into research grants that only supported drug-based science. Fast forward to today. The average American is on 4 to 6 prescription drugs. Chronic illness has skyrocketed. Despite trillions spent on healthcare, natural cures are still dismissed, ridiculed, or outright banned. Does that sound like a system designed to heal you? Or does it sound like a system designed to profit from your sickness? Let's go even deeper. Big Pharma is now one of the most powerful lobbies in the world. In the US, they spend more on lobbying than oil, weapons, and agriculture combined. Their executives move seamlessly between corporate boards and government health agencies. Conflicts of interest are not bugs in the system. They are features. And here's where it ties back to the Illuminati. The families and foundations that funded the rise of pharmaceutical medicine aren't just rich. They are connected to secret societies, to old bloodlines, to financial dynasties that have guided global policy for generations. They don't see medicine as healing. They see it as control, because if you can control someone's body, you can control their mind, their behavior, their productivity, their dependency. Now, think about how society treats the sick. You're not educated about root causes. You're given pills. You're not taught how food heals. You're sold processed garbage. You're not empowered to understand your body. You're trained to fear it. It's not just a healthcare system. It's a compliance system. And the worst part, many doctors don't even realize it. They're trained inside this model, rewarded for playing by its rules, punished for speaking out. So when someone questions Big Pharma, or points to ancient healing practices, or asks why people are sicker than ever, despite having more medicine than ever, they're labeled a conspiracy theorist. But the conspiracy already happened. It happened when health was privatized, when medicine became a business, when healing became secondary to shareholder profit. And the Illuminati, if it exists as theorized, is not standing in the spotlight. It's behind the curtain, pulling the strings. Still think your doctor has all the answers. In the next chapter, we expose the greatest nutritional lie ever told, and who designed it to keep you addicted, sick, and obedient. You probably remember it from school, the infamous food pyramid. At the bottom, a wide base of bread, pasta, and grains. At the top, a tiny sliver of fats and oils. We were told this was the key to a balanced, healthy life. But what if that pyramid wasn't built on science, but on corporate lobbying and manipulation? And what if following it was never meant to make us well, but to make us weak, dependent, and profitable? Let's rewind to the 1970s. Heart disease was rising fast in America, and the government was under pressure to act. In 1977, the Senate Select Committee on Nutrition and Human Needs, led by Senator George McGovern, released dietary guidelines that would eventually shape the USDA food pyramid. Sounds responsible, right? But behind the scenes, powerful agriculture and food industry lobbies were hard at work. Grain producers, sugar refiners, seed oil manufacturers, they all saw an opportunity. If the government recommended more of their products as essential, they'd make billions. And that's exactly what happened. The food pyramid was structured not around what nourishes the human body, but what would boost grain sales and reduce meat consumption, which the powerful meat lobby paradoxically supported to corner premium cuts and outsource low-grade meats for processed food. Instead of healthy fats, we were told to eat margarine and vegetable oils. Instead of protein and ancestral foods, we were told to load up on refined carbohydrates. Sugar, largely ignored, and it worked, not for public health, but for big ag, big food, and big pharma. In the decades that followed, obesity rates skyrocketed. Type 2 diabetes became an epidemic. Children developed chronic diseases, once reserved for the elderly. But instead of questioning the pyramid, we blamed ourselves. We were told to exercise more, eat even less fat, and stick to the plan. And who funded the research backing this plan? The same corporations selling the food? Cereal companies like Kellogg's and General Mills funded nutrition studies. Fast food giants influenced school lunch programs. Seed oil conglomerates pushed the idea that saturated fat kills, while quietly ignoring the inflammatory effects of their own products. It wasn't just about profit. It was about control. Because when people are undernourished, inflamed, tired, and foggy-headed, they don't ask questions. They don't resist. They consume. And that's exactly what the Illuminati, if they exist as theorized, would want. A global population kept alive, but barely thriving. Fed, but not nourished. Productive, but not powerful. And this isn't just historical. Even today, global dietary guidelines are still influenced by industry-funded science. Governments subsidize corn syrup, but tax raw milk. They approve lab-grown meats while demonizing local farms. Meanwhile, traditional diets that kept civilizations healthy for millennia are labeled as dangerous, unsustainable, or backward. Ask yourself, why is ancestral wisdom ignored? Why are natural fats demonized? Why are ultra-processed, shelf-stable foods labeled as heart-healthy? Because real health gives you energy, clarity, and independence. And those qualities are a threat to a system that wants obedience, dependence, and consumption. The food pyramid wasn't a mistake. It was a blueprint for a society that looks healthy on the surface, but is metabolically broken at the core. And the architects, not nutritionists, not scientists, but the same elite interests we've followed since Chapter 1, ready to see how deep the manipulation goes. Next, we uncover the tools being used right now to dull your senses, weaken your will, and quietly poison your body. If you wanted to control a population without them knowing, to influence not just their choices, but their very thoughts and emotions, how would you do it? You wouldn't need weapons. You'd need fluoride, pharmaceuticals, and frequencies. Let's start with fluoride. For decades, we've been told fluoride in drinking water is good for our teeth. What we weren't told is that fluoride is also a known neurotoxin, listed in numerous peer-reviewed studies as damaging to cognitive function, especially in children. In fact, fluoride is a waste product of the phosphate fertilizer industry, a byproduct that was too toxic to dump into rivers. So what did they do? They rebranded it as medication and added it to municipal water supplies. But the real red flag, the dosage is not controlled. Everyone drinks different amounts of water, and that means some people are being overexposed to a substance that can reduce IQ, calcify the pineal gland, and disrupt hormonal function. And what is the pineal gland? It's often called the seat of the soul, or the third eye. It regulates melatonin, sleep cycles, and consciousness states. It's deeply connected to our intuition and inner clarity. So ask yourself, why would a system interested in obedience want that part of your brain calcified and inactive? Next, pharmaceuticals. We already explored how medicine became a business, but now we dive into how psychiatric drugs and SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, are prescribed at an unprecedented rate. In the US, 1 in 6 adults is on some form of psychiatric medication. Children as young as 6 years old are prescribed amphetamines for focus, anti-anxiety meds, mood stabilizers, and antidepressants are now normalized, not as last resorts, but as first lines of treatment. Yet many of these drugs have serious side effects: emotional numbness, suicidal thoughts, dependency, and withdrawal symptoms worse than the original condition. And who benefits? Not the patients, the pharmaceutical giants, the insurance companies, the policymakers in bed with both. These medications don't fix the root issue. They suppress symptoms. And in doing so, they suppress people, their energy, clarity, and ability to resist manipulation. Now, the third weapon, frequencies, sound and electromagnetic frequencies, affect human biology more than we understand. Ancient civilizations knew this, using chanting, drumming, and harmonics for healing and alignment. Today, we live in a sea of EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies, Wi-Fi, 5G, Bluetooth, smart meters, satellites. And while modern science insists they're safe, independent studies suggest otherwise. EMFs have been linked to sleep disruption, DNA damage, fertility decline, and increased cancer risk. 5Gs, ultra-high frequencies, interact with the body's water molecules, and you are 70% water. Constant exposure can lead to a condition known as which causes anxiety, brain fog, and chronic fatigue. Now combine all three. Fluoride dulls your intuition and calcifies your higher awareness. Pharma flattens your emotions and turns your spirit into a dosage schedule. Frequencies scramble your inner compass and flood your energy field with chaotic noise. Is it any wonder anxiety, depression, and brain fog are at record highs? The tools of modern life may be invisible, but their impact is profound. And here's the kicker. These mechanisms are normalized. They're sold as progress, convenience, safety, but their cumulative effect is a society that is numb, distracted, chemically dependent, and unable to think clearly. Perfect conditions for control. If the Illuminati wanted to wage a war on the human mind and spirit without firing a shot, this would be it. But there are ways to fight back. Use fluoride-free water and toothpaste. Learn about sound healing and grounding. Avoid over-reliance on prescription drugs. Protect your home from constant EMF exposure, because awareness is the first step toward freedom. Every year, more than 10,000 people vanish without a trace. No goodbye, no evidence, no explanation, just gone. Some disappear into the wilderness. Others are last seen walking home from work. Some are children, some are veterans, some are whistleblowers. The common thread: no one talks about them. Mainstream media mentions a few cases, but the majority are buried under silence. And when someone asks why, they're called paranoid, delusional, or worse. But ask yourself, in a world with mass surveillance, satellites, smartphones, facial recognition, and data tracking, how is it possible that this many people simply vanish? It defies logic. Until you consider this. What if many of these disappearances aren't accidents, but part of something far more calculated? Let's begin with the most chilling cases, ones involving individuals who claimed to know too much. Journalists investigating human trafficking rings, corruption, or secretive programs have gone missing under suspicious circumstances. Some vanish en route to interviews. Others leave behind laptops, notes, and sometimes even unfinished manuscripts. Then there are scientists working on sensitive government projects, military insiders, people with links to black budget programs, advanced technologies, or classified experiments. And the patterns, always the same. No leads, no bodies, no closure, just families left in anguish, and systems that move on like nothing happened. Now let's go even darker. In remote areas across the world, especially national parks, deserts, and forests, hundreds of people disappear every year. David Paulides, a former police detective, documented this in his work Missing 411. The cases often defy explanation. People vanish without leaving footprints. Tracking dogs can't pick up a scent. Victims are found miles away in areas previously searched, without shoes, sometimes with clothes folded neatly beside them. Even stranger, no signs of struggle, no trauma, no logical reason. So what's really happening? Some believe these vanishings are connected to elite rituals, trafficking networks, or even clandestine experiments. It sounds outlandish until you follow the money. Black, BUDGETS. Those untraceable funds in government defense and intelligence total hundreds of billions per year. What are they funding? And why is so little oversight allowed? Could some of these resources be used to test psychological, biological, or even dimensional technologies on unwitting subjects? Could secretive groups with access to advanced surveillance and mobility tech abduct individuals without leaving a trace? Consider this. During the Cold War, the CIA ran MKUltra, a real mind control program. It used citizens without their consent. Some died, some went mad, and this was decades ago. So what programs exist now, hidden behind closed doors? If a person knew too much, if they were a threat to secrecy, or simply useful material, who would stop these groups from making them disappear? Now ask yourself, why does the media ignore these patterns? Why do official databases have incomplete records? Why are missing persons cases rarely connected, even when they follow similar paths? Because to acknowledge the pattern would mean admitting the unthinkable. that there are forces with the power to erase people from existence. This isn't just about lost hikers. It's about the silent war on truth seekers, outsiders, and the expendable. And if these disappearances are strategic, then the silence is the final weapon. So what can we do? Start by being aware. Share these stories. Don't dismiss the strange and unexplained. Demand answers. Support independent investigators. Protect whistleblowers, because the next person to vanish could be someone who is just getting too close to the truth. Up next, we follow the digital trail and expose the hidden hand behind your favorite apps. It started with a promise. Connect the world. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Platforms that would make us more open, more expressive, more informed. But what if the real mission wasn't connection, but containment? Social media is now embedded in every part of life. We use it to communicate, to learn, to express emotions, even to document our relationships. But few ask, who owns these platforms, and what do they do with our data? Let's start with the obvious. Every click, like, swipe, pause, and share is recorded. You are building a digital twin, a behavioral profile so detailed that it can predict your thoughts, emotions, and future choices. This data is not just used for ads. It's used to shape your worldview. Algorithms don't show you what's true. They show you what keeps you scrolling. That often means outrage, fear, distraction, and tribalism. Because the longer you stay, the more data they extract. Now ask yourself, why would governments partner with these platforms? The answer is surveillance. Social media is the most efficient intelligence-gathering tool ever invented. It's global, it's voluntary, and it's addictive. Through public posts and private messages. The powers that be can track dissent, monitor movements, predict uprisings, flag, and censor narratives before they spread, and they don't even need to break into your home. You carry the device, you write the updates, you tag the photos. But it goes deeper. Have you ever spoken about a product out loud, only to see an ad for it minutes later? That's not coincidence. Smartphones have always-on microphones. Voice data is collected under the guise of personalization. But who else is listening? Then there's facial recognition. Every selfie, every group photo, every video called training. Data for AI surveillance systems. Systems that now identify protesters, track travelers, and assess emotional states in real time. But perhaps the most insidious tool is the social credit model, pioneered in China. It ranks citizens based on behavior, purchases, opinions, and associations. Step out of line, you could be banned from travel, loans, or employment. Sound extreme. Now look closer at Western platforms. Community guidelines are increasingly vague. Content is demonetized. Without explanation, channels are shadow banned for questioning narratives. Payment platforms blacklist users with unacceptable views. This isn't freedom of speech. This is algorithmic obedience. But here's the kicker. People are addicted to it. They measure worth in likes, identity in hashtags, truth in virality. The digital self becomes more important than the real one. And when that happens, control becomes effortless. If the Illuminati wanted to enslave the mind without bars or chains, social media would be the perfect tool. Voluntary surveillance behavior, modification through dopamine loops, mass data harvesting for predictive policing, total emotional dependency where, not just being watched, we're being shaped. The question is, shaped into what? A society that no longer thinks, questions, or resists, but scrolls. A population too busy chasing followers to notice their freedoms. Eroding. But it doesn't have to stay this way. You can resist. Take breaks from social media. Use platforms that respect your privacy. Talk to people in the real world. Question what you see. Ask who benefits. Because in the battle for your mind, awareness is your greatest weapon. What if aging wasn't inevitable? What if it was just a program, like software, that could be rewritten, paused, slowed, maybe even reversed? Now imagine that the cure, or at least the tools to radically extend life, already exists, but instead of being released to humanity, it's locked away, hoarded by the elite, and hidden from public view. Sound like science fiction? Let's look at the evidence. In recent years, cutting-edge research in gene editing, cellular regeneration, and nanotechnology has exploded. Scientists have identified specific genes, like FOXO3 and SIRT1, linked directly to lifespan. Compounds, like NMN, resveratrol, and rapamycin, are being tested for their age-reversing effects. We've regenerated organs in pigs, reversed cellular aging in mice, even restored brain function in elderly primates. Some researchers believe the first human, who will live to 150, has already been born, so why don't you know about it? Because while this research is happening, it's not happening for you. It's happening in private labs, offshore clinics, and military biotechs. It's being bankrolled by billionaires like Jeff Bezos, Larry Page, and Peter Thiel, men who aren't funding aging research to share it. They want it for themselves. They call it life extension. You might call it immortality for the 1%. Now think about the system we live in. Aging means dependency on pharmaceuticals. It means nursing homes, surgeries, memory loss, chronic conditions. It fuels entire industries, insurance, medicine, caretaking, and funeral services. If a real cure for aging went public, trillions of dollars would evaporate overnight. That's not just bad business, it's a threat to the entire economic order. So what do the elites do? They suppress that. They fund disinformation campaigns, calling anti-aging science quackery. They block promising therapies through red tape. They make natural longevity tools expensive, fringe, or illegal. And instead, they feed you placebos, skin, creams that do nothing, expensive supplements with no bioavailability, cosmetic surgeries that only hide decay instead of healing it. Meanwhile, in their circles, they're getting plasma transfusions from young donors, experimenting with T activation, using AI to map the complete decay profile of their own bodies. And that's just what we know about. Now let's go even deeper. Some researchers believe ancient civilizations may have already unlocked extreme longevity. Texts from Sumer, Egypt, and India speak of lifespans exceeding 300 years. Were these metaphors or memories? What if the Illuminati, as theorized, are not just preserving power, but preserving life itself? A select class of beings who quietly renew themselves while the rest of us age and die. It sounds impossible, until you follow the money, and the secrecy, and perhaps the most important question of all. What kind of society would we have if humans lived 150, 200, or 300 years? Would we demand more truth? Would we become harder to control? Would long life force us to think in terms of legacy, not quarterly profits? Maybe that's why they keep it from us, because short lives mean short memories, short rebellions, and short resistance. But it's not too late. You can still reclaim your biological power, learn about fasting, mitochondrial health, and detoxification. Explore regenerative foods and ancient herbal medicines. Question everything Big Pharma tells you about inevitability. You were born with a body that wants to heal. The key is removing the chains that keep it from doing so. What if the biggest disasters of our time weren't accidents of history, but deliberate operations? Every few years, we face a new catastrophe. A pandemic sweeps the globe, crops fail, gas prices spike, nations go to war, and we're told these events are natural, unfortunate, or unpredictable. But what if they're not? What if these crises are not only anticipated, but engineered by an invisible hand that benefits from chaos, fear, and division? Let's start with pandemics. The official narrative tells us viruses emerge from animals, cross over into humans, and spread unpredictably. But what the media often fails to mention is that many of these pathogens were being studied in labs years before they escaped. Gain-of-function research, where viruses are enhanced to become more infectious, was being conducted in top-level biosafety labs around the world. Scientists warned against it. Some were silenced. Then ... The outbreak happened. And who benefited? Big Pharma saw record profits. Surveillance infrastructure expanded. Civil liberties were suspended. The public was trained to comply, submit, and obey. Now ask yourself, was it just a public health response? Or was it a live exercise in mass control? Next, famines. We're told food shortages are caused by climate change, war, or supply chain disruptions. But who owns the farmland? Who controls the seeds? Who regulates what farmers can grow? The answer, increasingly, is a handful of corporations, and behind them, the same global elite families that control media, banking, and pharmaceuticals. Bill Gates is now the largest private farmland owner in the United States. Why is it about sustainability or control over what people can eat? Consider this. Farmers are paid to destroy crops. Natural seeds are being replaced with patented GMOs. Food processing plants mysteriously burn down. Coincidence or controlled demolition? Then there's war. Every major conflict enriches the military-industrial complex. Defense contractors make billions. Energy prices soar. Governments seize more power. The public is distracted, enraged, and divided. But behind every war are bankers. Follow the money, and you'll find the same financial institutions funding both sides. The same elites who control currency also control conflict. And when the dust settles, who profits? Rebuilding contracts, resource access, new borders drawn to benefit old powers. If the Illuminati exists, a secretive network of ultra-wealthy power brokers, then manufactured crises is their primary tool. Because chaos breeds dependence. It makes people cry out for order, for saviors, for solutions. And who offers those solutions? The same hands that created the crisis. This is the Hegelian dialectic. Problem, reaction, solution. You fear illness, they offer a vaccine. You fear hunger, they offer lab-grown food. You fear war, they offer global governance. And in every case, you give up a piece of your sovereignty. It doesn't mean every disaster is fake, but it means we must ask, who benefits? Because real power doesn't just control outcomes. It controls perception. The elite don't need to win every battle. They just need you afraid enough to stop thinking, to comply, to forget. But there is another path. One where we see the patterns. Follow the money. Expose the architects. Because if these crises are manufactured, they can also be dismantled. And that begins with awareness. After everything you've seen, the symbols, the medicine, the food, the technology, the manipulation, one question remains. What can I do to protect myself and the people I love? The truth is, you have more power than you've been led to believe. The system thrives on passivity, on dependence, on silence. But once you recognize the tools used to control you, you can begin to dismantle them one by one. Let's start with the mind. 1. Detox from media. Turn off the news. Log out of platforms designed to divide you. Choose information over stimulation. Start with books, long-form content, independent journalism. Reconnect with your own intuition. 2. Reclaim your attention. They profit every time you're distracted. Rebuild your focus. Limit screen time. Protect your sleep. Reclaim your brain. 3. Question narratives. Something is universally promoted, and any opposition is censored. That's not science. That's dogma. Trust your gut. Investigate. Ask, who benefits? Now your health. 4. Return to natural living. Real food. Move your body. Get sunlight. Sleep deeply. Breathe clean air. Use water free from fluoride and toxins. Remember, nature is not the alternative, it's the original. 5. Ditch big. Pharma safely. Consult with holistic experts. Learn herbal medicine. Don't accept a pill for every symptom. Seek root causes. 6. Strengthen immunity. Fast detox. Nourish. Prioritize gut health, mitochondrial function, and stress resilience. Health is not a product, it's a lifestyle of sovereignty. Then your family. 7. Teach your children truth. Don't let algorithms raise them. Raise them in truth. Show them how to question, how to see symbols, how to think critically. 8. Build community. They want us isolated and afraid. Find your tribe, real people, real conversations. Trade, share, grow food, and protect each other. 9. Become uncancelably. Income. Learn skills that matter. Own your platform, your voice, your story. The more self-sufficient you become, the less they can take. And finally, 10. Remember who you are not a statistic, not a consumer, not a subject. You are a living, breathing, sovereign soul. Your awareness is your shield. Your voice is your weapon. Your love is your revolution. The Illuminati, if it exists, is not afraid of violence. It's afraid of consciousness, because once the fog lifts, their spells break. So don't despair. Don't run, rise. Use everything you've learned to light the way for others. Turn knowledge into action. Turn fear into fuel. Turn pain into power. Because in the end, the greatest conspiracy isn't that they control us, it's that we let them. Until now. Thank you for watching. If this video opened your eyes, share it. Leave a comment. Subscribe. Let the algorithm work for truth, not tyranny. The time is now. Stay awake. Stay free. Stay human. If you've made it this far, then you've already done what most people never will. You opened your eyes. You dared to question the systems that surround you. You looked past the headlines, the symbols, the narratives, and followed the trail of power to its source. And now, you see it. The patterns, the manipulation, the agenda. But more importantly, you now see your power. Because every system we exposed, from healthcare to food, from media to finance, only works if you believe it must. And the moment you say no more, the spell breaks. Remember, you are not alone. You are not crazy. And you are not powerless. You are part of a rising wave of people around the world who are choosing truth over comfort, courage over convenience, and consciousness over compliance. That's the real revolution. One mind at a time. One family at a time. One action at a time. So here's what to do now. Like this video if it spoke to something deep in you. Subscribe to help this content reach others who are still asleep. Comment with, "I see it now." Let the world know you're awake. Share this with someone who needs to understand what's really going on. Let the algorithms carry truth, not fear. Let your voice carry light, not silence. This isn't the end of the story. It's just the beginning of a new one. A story where you're not just watching history, you're shaping it. Stay alert, stay resilient, stay free. The time to act is now. Thank you for watching. Until next time, stay human, stay sovereign, stay awake.